Mixing vocals used to take hours, but what if I told you that one plugin can do it all in seconds? Today we're going to be diving into Neural DSP's Mantra, a brand new vocal plugin meant to make vocal processing super fast, efficient, and with studio quality. Mantra is the first vocal processing plugin by Neural DSP, widely known for their amazing guitar emulation plugins. It combines pitch correction, equalization, compression, saturation, effects, and harmonizer. What makes this plugin so unique among any other plugin out there is the fact that you can switch between mixing mode and recording mode. When using mixing mode, you're using the plugin full horsepower with higher quality setting. When you switch to recording mode, you have no latency. So you can basically have a vocalist come in the studio, get a decent sound going right away in seconds, and then when it's time for the mixing phase, you can simply switch to mixing mode without having to restart your whole vocal chain. My name's Ali Baudouin, and in this video I'm gonna break down every feature of this plugin, test it in a real mix, and give you my honest opinion about it. Let's get going. So let's go over the plugin's GUI. So if you're familiar with Neural DSP's guitar emulation plugins, you're gonna be feeling right at home. So first on top you have input for your signal, then output. It's important to mention that input mode does not equal the type of track that you're using in your DAW. For example, right now this track is set to stereo, although it was a mono track. As you can see, it's the same information on left and the right channels. So I converted it to stereo in the DAW and put the input mode to mono so that I can use the tune feature here. Remember, if it's set to stereo, you won't have the tune function. So you set it to mono even though the track is stereo here. So that way you can fully use the panning in the harmony and the effects section, for example, stereo delay, stereo plate, the chorus, the doubler. If your track is not set to stereo in your DAW, you won't get any of this effect in stereo, obviously. Then the unique feature here is really regarding the mixing and the tracking mode. So if I put it in tracking mode, you're gonna notice that this area just became grayed out. The reason is that this is dynamic spectral processing and it's more CPU intensive. So it's only gonna be available in mixing mode. The root and scale menu here is very important if you intend to use the harmony tab on the center here. Here you have the presets tab, and this is very useful to get the results in no time when you're working with your vocals. So you're gonna find your favorite presets here. You have, I think, 57 provided by Neural DSP. You're also gonna have artist presets, including mine, which are all here. So I have also settings here for bass, for drums, for guitars. In all the presets that I provided, you're gonna see that they're basically gain match. So it's not gonna trick you into thinking that it's sounding better just because the signal is basically now louder. Here you have the final limiter that comes at the very end of the full plugin chain right here. So make sure that when you're working your sound, you turn it off, and then when you're closer to the final result, you can reactivate the final limiter and adjust basically the threshold. Let's first check out the tune module, the very first one on the left. So on the right upper corner, every module you have a switch for off or on. In the case of the first module, you can simply have retune to off, so this won't be used, but you can still adjust pitch or format. In this case, we want the retune to be at on. The tolerance, the lower it's gonna be, the more sensitive it's gonna get. And the attack is the time basically it's gonna take to act. And finally, humanize is to make it sound a bit more realistic. So right now the settings are set up to be pretty natural sounding, but if you want to destroy that, you can put the tolerance to 0%, put the attack to 100, and you're gonna hear it sounds basically like a robot. To be more transparent, you set it a bit lower, tolerance a bit higher, and humanize as you wish. The gate is basically like any other gate. So in this case, there wasn't much noise. The singer was not recording with a full band, but you could still hear a little bit of headphone bleed at the end of the takes. If the opening is too high, you won't hear anything, and if it's too low, it's not gonna gate anything. So you're gonna have to find the sweet spot between the opening and the closing, and here in blue is gonna be when the gate is basically open. And like any other gate, the whole time is gonna be for how long the gate's gonna stay open after it falls below threshold. So the first thing that you're gonna notice when you open Mantra is the fact that it's trying to analyze your signal, and this will be used for the sculpt module that's right there. Here you're going to be basically getting a profile according to that. So you have different profiles here. You have EQ and you have dynamic spectral compression, and you can always reset and restart the analysis if you feel like the plugin hasn't caught what it needed to really catch. So depending on what you're picking here, it's gonna really change the EQ curve. And here, the more percentage of the EQ, the stronger the curve is gonna be. So let me show you here how it sounds like. Remember here, the dynamic section is not gonna work if you're in tracking mode. You have to have it in mixing mode.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets.
So you can hear it does spectral compensation. So it's basically compressing the peaks to make sure your signal is nice and even. So let me raise the EQ curve a little bit here and change profile.
Of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young.
Very cool. Then we have the de-esser. So this one simply has a low and high cut. You simply have intensity and amount.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young. Place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
This de-esser is quite straightforward, but you're getting good results really fast, and that's what matters. Then you have a really cool EQ module here. You have 4 different bands: low shelf, high shelf, low pass, high pass. And here you have basically control over what's called a gain scale. So depending on the moves that you're doing, let's say I'm doing a boost here at around 350 and a cut around, let's say, 750. This gain scale is going to basically accentuate what we've done already. So you can see here, it changes. So that's very practical. So you can spot what you need to do, and when in context in your mix, you can simply change the gain scale. Then you have the compressor module. First one would be tube, which is very soft and smooth. So this is basically an LA2A style compression with compressor or limiter mode. The gain here and the compression. Then you have here stress as a distressor with the ratios 4 to 10. These are fast attack, slow attack. Again, compression here. And finally here, the multi-band compressor. So here we have the over-the-top compression, more balance and mid-focus. So let's listen to the different styles of compression that we have here.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
So here in the multi-mode, you have a very aggressive OTT compressor, which is a mix of upward and downward compression. So it's really bringing out the details and also squashing the dynamics in a way that makes your vocals very, very upfront. Finally, you have saturation here. You have 3 different types of saturation. You have tape.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young,
tube,
in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon
and digital
of the place we lived when we were young, in miracles beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
And you also have a low cut setting, so you can also basically clear up the mud in your signal if you don't want too much of your vocals to be affected with the saturation and the low end frequency buildup. This is very, very useful. Then we have here in the center the harmony tab, which can be extremely powerful and time saving. So first, make sure that you know the root and scale of the song you're working with, otherwise the chords won't be following the melody properly. So you have a bunch of presets here in the voicing library. So let's listen to the vocals first with no harmony. So here we're gonna have the setting deactivated.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
So you can see all these presets are pretty effective as long as your root and scale are set up properly. So this in the display here, what you see is the main vocals, which is basically DI here. And then these are 4 different sets of harmonies. So we have pair 1, pair 2, pair 3, and pair 4. If you want to solo each of them, you can simply click here and listen to it.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
You can also click the piano icon here, and this activates the MIDI mode for Mantra, which basically can take the MIDI information from your project and create stereo pairs with that for harmonies, which is extremely powerful. So you have full flexibility here. So for each pair here, you have intervals, or also octave, or use both. You have the level, the width. Here you also have control over the formants for each pair. So you can simply deactivate or activate each pair by right clicking. It's super convenient to narrow down on what you like doing a full stack. And here on the right side, you have basically a master control. So DI is your main vocals. And here you have pitch, time, you can randomize. You have low cut, high cut. So let's listen to how it sounds like when I play with these settings right here.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
So you can use that to make it sound slightly more natural if you randomize pitch and time. Also, you have filters over the whole setting. Finally, here you have level and width. This is control over all the harmonies at once, and DI is your main signal. And finally, here you have scale quantize, which basically activates quantize function for all the harmonies to match the closest note on the scale that you've set right here. The third and final tab here is the effects tab. So here you have 4 different type of delays. You have analog, circular, tape, and finally dual. So for each of them you have different settings, but basically you have standard width control, time, feedback. Here you can have the option for ping pong in analog, and here you have obviously your filters, high and low, but you also have control over the main vocals or the harmonies. So this is very cool if you just want to have a sprinkle of harmonies but not to use it too much so it sounds artificial. You can simply add a little bit of that. And finally you have the dock control, which acts a little bit like having a sidechain compressor on your effects return. So basically your lead vocals are gonna dock the effects to make sure that they stay present even though your signal is quite wet. So that's really cool. You have control over the wetness here. So that's very useful. In the center here, you have 3 different type of verbs. You have hall, plate, and ambience. Again, the same thing. You have control over the main and the harmonies. You have the option to dock. You have filters here. And finally here, you have modulation, which is chorus, flanger and phaser settings, which can be really powerful for adding width to your vocals, depending if you're using background vocals, lead vocals, harmonies. So again, you have control separately over the main and the harmonies. And finally here, you have a doubler. And here you have the control over spread, which is basically the width and the level. So let's check out how this section sounds like. So you can start with the same preset that I have right now with the preset Oli Baudouin in Vox Lead Delay Male. Assign the right root and scale to whatever track you're using, and you can mess with all these settings here. So let's listen to it. This is a little bit more wet than it should be, but it's for you to basically hear how it sounds like. Then you can drop it down a little bit.
Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the...
So here I wasn't hearing any difference in the harmonies mix because this tab was basically turned off. So let's try to activate it and see how it's gonna sound like with the harmonies also added to your main vocals.
On the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles. Beyond the horizon of the place we lived when we were young, in a world of magnets and miracles.
Also, one thing you should know with the harmonies section, it's not only flexible because you can use your own MIDI information, but depending on the settings here, you can also automate. So you can simply downsize the window here to medium. And then here you can change between settings if you like something else for a certain part, for example. So you can write
beyond the horizon
and change here, and then you're gonna have automation written in your session, so you can change for specific sections in your song. So that can be also pretty useful. So this is not fixed in stone, you can always change it whenever you want. So let's try to see how Mantra sounds in a real mixing context now that we've went over all the features of the plugin. So what I did, I opened a session that was already mixed and I basically duplicated all the lead vocal tracks to try to get the same sound or something similar to the original session. So here in my original session, I had a plugin chain of 7 plugins here plus 6 sends. So I have EQ, compressor, then EQ again, Smart DS for a de-esser, saturation and limiter. And here in the sends I had two different type of verbs. I had a doubler for width, I had parallel distortion, I had a slap back, and I had also a parallel compression. So let's hear how it sounds like the original version. So now let's see how it sounds like with only mantra. So you can see how close the vocals are, and using mantra I didn't have to do any type of routing with effect sense. I was simply loading the plugin on the channel and using everything internally. So that's pretty insane. Now let's listen to the chorus part of the song. So here obviously we have 12 tracks, so it gives a lot of body and width to the performance. So what I did here, I duplicated the main lead vocals track and I loaded one instance of mantra. So let's see how this compares to a full stack of vocals using the Harmonies tab. So here I made sure to use the right root and scale. The preset that I'm using, you're gonna see in your own folder, the Oli Baudouin folder, lead harm stack.
Of fear just keep on pulling me. Echoes of dark days I cannot escape. Echoes of dark days, this hellish dreamscape. How did this ever come to be? Echoes of fear just keep on pulling me. Echoes of dark days I cannot escape. Echoes of dark days, this hellish dreamscape. How did this ever come to be? Echoes of fear just keep on pulling me.
So not bad at all. We have some decent width here, although we're missing some elements. We have 12 tracks here. It's hard to match. Also, the harmonies were different than simply following the main line all the time. They were doing some variations around. There are so many possibilities with mantra that go beyond only vocals processing. So here I created a bunch of presets for you, for example, for bass tracks, for drum tracks, for guitars. So you can use, for example, the bus smack for parallel processing. So let's say you route all of your drum bus into a parallel bus, and on that specific bus, you load mantra with the bus smack setting. So this will include an EQ curve, compressor with distressor, and then saturation, which will give a lot of character to your drum bus. So let's listen to the drum bus dry with no mantra. And you can do the same with kick drum, snare drum. So here I have really cool presets for instant punch for your snare, a big chest hit. You have kick to get you started basically with a nice EQ curve, compression and saturation. Now let's listen to what Mantra can do on bass. So here I made 3 different presets, one mellow, one modern, and one used for parallel distortion to get you this extra edge. So you can basically duplicate your main track and have Mantra loaded on the second track and use parallel edge to really give this drive. So here I used a filter, a compressor, and saturation to really get some grit. So all the definition on your bass track is gonna come out a lot more. So you can use that in parallel with your main bass track. That way you really have the best of both worlds. For pros and cons, I would say that the most amazing thing with this plugin is the fact that you can get set up in a vocal recording session in no time. And the vocalist will hear himself or herself sound super good with built-in pitch adjustment. So that will make them sound more comfortable, and in terms you will get better performances, which will make your job easier down the road. The fact that Mantra is an all-in-one solution can really help you save time when it's time to set up a vocal chain. And also, you're gonna save DSP. Instead of having to load 10 different plugins to try to process your vocals, you're loading only one instance of Mantra that can take care of your vocal signal. For those of you guys beginning with music production, it can get pretty expensive when you start buying a bunch of plugins or subscriptions. So if you get Mantra once, you can use basically the channel strip on any other sound source like a kick, a snare, a drum bus, so you have a full effects chain at your disposal. For cons, I would say that experienced mixers out there may feel like they're losing a little bit of control over the way the signal path is set up. For example, EQ before compression, compression before EQ. It depends on personal preferences, but in this case, Mantra has a specific way the modules are set up and there's no way to swap them around. It would also have been really cool to have the plugin fully modular, meaning that not only you can swap the modules, but you can have 2 of the same. For example, compressors. It's very common to have 1176 and then LA2A in one single chain. In this case, you have access to only one compressor. Don't count on Mantra to do 100% of the work. If you're serious about mixing, you may want to cut some resonances off in your vocal signal and also prepare it with a professional pitch adjustment software such as Melodyne. So for the verdict, Mantra can absolutely get you pro sounding vocals in no time without having to load a full signal chain. And the fact that it has a built-in low latency mode can make things so easy for your vocal sessions. Are you going to use Mantra in your own recording sessions or mixes? Let me know in the comments below. And if you need to go a bit more surgical in your vocal processing, these 2 tools are really great to prepare your vocal tracks so that then you can use Mantra with no sweat. See you very soon.